In this video, we're going to talk about how to find a percent of a number. This drawing right here is going to be very important. This would be a good thing to write in your notes. If we're talking about numbers, we always have words of this, is and of. And then we have a percent amount. And remember from our last lesson that percent amounts are always out of 100 total. So let's take a look at what this means. What is, so notice there's that word is, but the word what was with it. So we don't know this is portion. So when we set up our problem, we could leave this as a variable, we could leave it as the word is, or we could even put in a question mark. What is 30%? Well, we know from yesterday's lesson to write 30% as a fraction is 30 out of 100. So that's our percents out of 100. And then we have the word of 600. So of is found on the bottom. It is our total amount. So we put the 600 on the bottom. Now we have some steps. Again, this would be a good time to pause the video and write some of these steps down. The first step is to cross multiply. Cross multiply means that you multiply a top with a bottom on the opposite fractions. So in this case, we have a bottom on this side, so we need to multiply it with the opposite top. So 600 times 30, remember you can do that as a quick math problem. 6 times 3 is 18, and we had 3 zeros in the problem. So we get 18,000. And then we divide by what was remaining. So we used the 600, we used the 30, 100 was remaining. So we're going to divide by 100. Now, dividing by 100 is actually pretty easy because it's a power of 10. If we had the number 18,000, my example had one too many zeros, sorry about that. All we have to do is move the decimal in 2 places. Because we're dividing it, we're moving our decimal to the left. So if the decimal is at the end of a number, we're going to move it in 2 places. And since we only had zeros after the decimal, those numbers really are not needed. So our full answer is 180. So what is 30% of 600? 180 is 30% of 600. Let's try another example. What is 45% of 75? So if we remember, we have our is over our of. What is? Do we know what is? No. So we're going to put a question mark on top. What is 45%? So we know 45%, and percents are always out of 100. So what is 45% of 75? Because we have the word of is on the bottom. So we have our equation set up. Now we're going to cross multiply. Remember, we're doing a bottom with an opposite top. Well, in this equation, we only have the bottom. So we are going to cross multiply the 45 and the 75. This is where you're going to have to use some of your mathematical skills. Maybe it's the area model. Maybe it's the traditional method. Whichever method has worked well for you with your math problems so far is what you should stick with. So as we put together our problem and we start solving all of our boxes, we then will go and add all of our amounts together. I like to add columns first. This column is 3,000 and then I add this column, which is 375. So I get an answer so far of 3,375. Now I don't put the comma in because we have to divide, and we're dividing by our remaining amount. If it helps, put a division sign in with what's left over. So we have 3,375, and we're going to divide it by 100. 100 has two zeros. So we're going to move it two spots to the left because we want to make it smaller. So we take our decimal, it's at the end of a number, we move it in one spot, we move it in two spots. So our new answer that we get is 33.75. And that is our answer. So what is 45% of 75? It's 33.75. Now it's time for you to try a few yourselves. Pause the video, then resume to check your answers. Welcome back. Let's check your work for what is 60% of 110. First, you should have set up your equation. We have our 60% of 100, and we have our what is out of 110. When we cross multiply, we're going to be multiplying 110 times 60, and we get an answer of 6,600. But then we got to take that amount and divide it by 100. When we divide it by 100, we're really just moving in the decimal two spots, which gives us an answer of just 66. Because those were zeros after the decimal, they are not needed, so our answer is just 66. On the next side, if we have 8% out of the 100 compared to, we have of 37. Of is on the bottom. So that means we're missing our is, the top. What is? So again, we're going to cross multiply. That will be 37 times 8. 37 times 8 is 296. Make sure you're showing your work. Then I'm going to take my 296 and I'm going to divide it by 100 because that's what was remaining. 100 has two zeros, so we move our decimal in two places on our other number. That leaves us with an answer of 2.96, which is our answer for this problem. What is 8% of 37? It's 2.96. Give the worksheet a try. Practice some extra problems in iExcel. Rewatch the video if you need some more help. And Zoom if you still need more help from the teacher.